The first tale starts with a girl standing in her kitchen. Enchanted, she strolls toward the mirror, stands before it, and stares at her reflection with a strange, unsettling smile. 3 hours earlier, before this very moment, she is seen lying on the bed while her husband is sleeping beside her. She's reading a book. Then, she abandons her activity and exits the room to wash her face and use the restroom. When she's done, she turns to leave, but her sight catches the attention of a woman standing in the bathtub, facing the wall. She gets creeped out, advances warily to the bathing area, and removes the bath curtains, but there's no one. Yet again, she sees the same lady upon placing the curtain back again, but after pulling it open, there is still no one there. She retreats from the restroom. Her heart is pounding fast with fear. Suddenly, an eerie voice singing from the lounge strikes her ears. Upon examination, the same woman stands before her, facing the other side of the lounge. She immediately hides behind the wall, with her palm against her mouth, trying to avoid making any sound. The strange woman turns around. She has a hideous mask on her face. The woman starts to walk where the girl is standing, but there's no one there anymore. Scared, the girl goes to her husband, wakes him up, and tells him about the intruder, but he shows her on the phone that there's no one in the house. The man rises from the bed and leaves the room to check. She watches him on the mobile when suddenly, she sees the same woman butchering him. The masked woman, after assassinating her husband, runs towards her, but she closes the door before the masked woman can enter. The strange lady kept banging at the door, and it felt like it would break open. Suddenly, she sees two fingers entering from underneath the door. However, no one enters the room and the woman is puzzled. At that very moment, the masked lady emerges from the closet. The scared woman opens the window behind her and escapes from the house. The masked woman leaves the room and starts chasing her. The frightened woman sits inside the car and finds nobody around. But suddenly, she finds the same masked woman beside the car in front of her. The next story shows Rita sleeping on her couch when she hears someone outside, scratching her door. She checks on the security cameras and finds a bald woman scratching the door who seems injured. She asks through the camera if she's okay. The woman stops scratching and vanishes from the screen for a split second, reappears, and resumes scratching. Rita gets scared and tries to frighten her by threatening to call the cops, but she doesn't budge. Rita walks to the door and tries to scare her away. As she opens the front door, she finds nobody. Rita assumes that the woman has left. As she returns, she hears the same sound again. When she checks through the window, the scary-looking woman looks back at her. Rita steps back with fear and goes outside to check again. She doesn't know that the same woman has somehow entered the house and can be seen on the security camera footage. Rita returns and locks the door. The scary-looking woman is no longer standing in the lounge. Rita goes to her bed, terrified. She switches on the lights in the lounge and goes to bed. Suddenly, she can hear the same scratching sounds again. She checks the security cameras, but finds nothing. This time, the sound is coming from under her bed. As she looks under her bed, she finds the same thing, and it drags Rita inside too. The following story introduces us to Steven, who is drawing a picture of a girl on a paper. All of a sudden, he receives a call. It's his girlfriend on the other side. She has lost her belongings and has called him to tell him that she's returning. He asks if he should leave the door open, but she replies that she can come in with or without the key, and the call disconnects. Steven feels strange, but doesn't bother and leaves to take a shower. He takes a pair of and starts doing weird things. While in the shower, Steven hears a thud. He ignores the sound and continues bathing. He hears the sound again. Someone is singing the same song as him. He turns around and sees a girl standing nearby. As he's not wearing his glasses, his vision seems blurry, and he can't focus on the person. When he opens the door, he finds no one there. He goes in, closes the bathroom door, and returns to bathing. Suddenly, he hears the same thud and the door opening, and sees the same girl standing there once again. As he opens the door, it's a woman who resembles the one he had drawn earlier. He quickly grabs his glasses and looks again, but there's no one this time. He comes to the lounge and hears footsteps. He follows the sounds to find out what it is that's disturbing him. His heart is beating with fright, and he finds someone standing behind the dinner table. When he switches on the light, he sees no one, but there is a pencil moving on the table like someone has pushed it. He finds the same drawing he had drawn with the scissors in the dining room. He hangs the drawing on the wall in the next room. Then he remembers that he had not drawn any scissors. He is about to close the door behind him, but stays when he hears the sound of scissors again. He closes the door and is about to enter his room, but he hears something from the room beside him. He enters that room and finds the same picture girl standing with the scissors. He quietly closes the door and strides away in horror. Steven can see her standing a little away from him. He closes his bedroom door and hides under the bed, but the picture woman keeps coming toward him and enters his bedroom. The woman stands before the bed, and Steven stops breathing, trying not to make any sound. Suddenly, the woman sits on the bed, counting and jumping in a heavy voice. Then she gets off the bed and steps out of the room. Steven crawls out of bed to check. He creeps to his bedroom door and opens it, but the woman is standing right outside and attacks him with the scissors. The drawing appears, showing Steven deceased beside the girl. The following story shows a woman drying her hair with a towel when she hears a creaking sound from behind. She turns around, walks to the room, turns off the light, and walks away. She sits on her couch and starts reading a book. Suddenly, she hears a door creaking open and sees shadowy hands on the door. The door closes before she can do anything. She runs to the door, opens it, and switches on the light. She feels relieved that the windows are open and it's just a draft opening and closing the door. But she doesn't know that the shadowy figure is hiding behind the door. She takes a deep breath and tells herself that it's not real. In the same instant, she hears a creaking sound from behind the door. When she checks, she finds nobody there. She switches off the lights and leaves, but the shadowy figure is still standing there. The door creaks open again, stopping the woman from her work. This time, she witnesses the shadowy figure. She grabs the keys and is about to exit when she realizes it is not real. She closes the door, and at the same instant, she hears someone knocking. She goes to the room to check again, and the figure is standing behind her. She switches on the light and finds nobody again. She keeps reminding herself that it's not real. Meanwhile, the shadowy figure stands behind her, smiling sinisterly. Suddenly, the door closes and the woman is about to have the worst time of her life. The next story occurs inside a parking lot. A man parks his car and gets out. He takes out the grocery bags from the trunk and walks to the elevator when he hears someone say, "Akira." He stops and notices someone standing all covered in black. The strange-looking girl enters a room, and he follows her. He opens the door and finds her sitting on the floor, but when he flashes the light, he finds nobody. He assumes that it was his imagination. Suddenly, he sees the reflection of a woman with no eyes on his phone. He spins around in fright, but finds nothing. He quietly picks up his groceries and goes to his home, but he suddenly hears the same sound he heard in the basement and finds the same girl standing a few steps below on the stairs. He threatens her with cops and enters his home. However, he forgets his keys outside. Suddenly, he hears something dropping. When he turns around, it's his keys on the floor. He picks it up, but simultaneously, the door to the room beside him opens up, and he falls to the ground, scared. He finds the same girl standing in the doorway, and in a flash, he is dragged by the same entity inside. Up next, Chrissy is seen calling her boyfriend on the phone. They're chatting, and she tells him that she's going to the photo shoot, as this is a fantastic opportunity for her. Chrissy really enjoys her work, but the photographer appears strange and weird and starts photographing her. Something in his gesture scares Chrissy, and she feels uneasy doing a swimwear shoot for her. He keeps taking her photos and asks for her new photographs. He offers her more money, and she starts feeling uncomfortable. Suddenly, she sees the photographer standing before her with the strangest smile ever. She goes to the bathroom, but the photographer is not moving and stands like some statue. She's about to leave the place when she hears him from behind. His normal expression changes to the same paranormal smile, and he clicks a photo. Later on, Chrissy is seen standing beside the roadside when her boyfriend approaches her. She spits on the floor and speaks in some strange, manly voice. Her boyfriend gets annoyed and leaves her on the roadside. The following story shows a couple sitting in the car. The man is trying to make out, but the woman seems uninterested. Suddenly, she sees someone pass by in the rearview mirror. In that moment, the girl's neck spins and takes a 360-degree turn. The boy gets freaked out. She asks him to sit in the back seat. When she approaches him, she has no pupils, just white eyes. He becomes unconscious. When he wakes up, the woman is nowhere to be seen. He sees her standing nearby wearing a white shirt with a large blood stain on it. She climbs inside the car quietly, and the man sits beside her. She tells him that she has been starving and wants to eat something. The man tries to get out of the car, but the girl warns him not to and asks him to drop her at home. The next story is about a mystery box. A woman receives a delivery. She opens the door and finds a box at her doorstep and a man standing in a white PPE suit on her front porch. But after a few seconds, he disappears. She closes the door and takes the box inside. She opens it and finds a flash drive. She plugs it into her laptop, and a video appears. The same man, completely dressed in a PPE suit, appears on the screen. He has a bag placed at a distance, which is moving. He has zipped a man inside the bag. The body is alive and struggling to be freed. The man goes nearer and raises a drill in the air, and the screen goes blank. The woman shuts her laptop and looks inside the box. She finds something. She's still checking it when her phone rings. Someone is speaking in a hoarse tone, and the same man is approaching her from the back with a knife in his hand. She turns around but finds nobody. She goes outside the house, holding a knife, when somebody invisible snatches it from her. She returns inside to find her phone ringing, but she can't find her phone anywhere. She checks every room, but suddenly, the same man grabs her from behind. When she regains consciousness, she realizes that she's locked inside a bag. She hears the drill and knows what's about to come next. The following story shows Cheryl reading a book when she hears some sounds in her closet. She gets up and decides to check it. Before Cheryl could have checked the closet, her phone rings. She gets busy talking to someone on the phone, and she leaves home to go on her date. After Cheryl leaves, the door to the closet creaks open, and a man peeks inside the room. Later, when she returns, she finds footsteps on her carpet going to the next room. When she opens the door, she finds a man sitting awkwardly. She shouts at him and inquires about the footprints. He seems strange and creepy. She asks him to hand her the belt, and her shouts are heard while the man screams in pain. In reality, the woman is a psychopath who inflicts pain on the man from time to time. In the next story, a Santa walks across the neighborhood, delivering presents, while a boy sits beside his bed, praying. The boy prepares to sleep and asks his mother to leave the door ajar. As she exits, she tells him that Santa knows when he will wake up. He finds it odd, but sleeps eventually. After a while, he wakes up because of the loud bang from the hall. As he steps out and checks, he finds his mother on the floor beside the staircase, deceased. In the other room, he finds Santa standing all alone. Santa leaps toward him, and he runs back to his room and hides under the blanket. Suddenly, his blanket is taken off. Luckily, it's just his father. The boy informs him that Mom has fallen off the stairs, but to his surprise, his father tells him that she's in the kitchen cleaning the mess. At the same instant, his mother also enters the room. They believe he just had a nightmare and ask him to return to sleep, and both parents leave. After a while, he hears a gunshot, and when he goes out, he first checks if Santa is still there. Eerily, he sees someone dragging her mother's body. As he flights down the staircase, he discovers his father standing near the hallway. Santa attacks him and assassinates him. The boy returns to his room and hides inside the closet. He watches Santa approach the room and look for him. After a while, he sees that Santa is not in the room, so he exits the closet. But at the exact moment, Santa attacks him from behind. Tyler wakes up from his dream and finds his mother standing in the corner. His mother asks him to join them in opening the presents. Tyler feels that his parents are acting weird. He is having a tough time and is about to experience something much worse as his father is holding a hammer in his hand. And at the same instant, Santa's hand appears from one of the boxes. The next story shows a girl sitting in her car, talking to someone on the phone. She then exits the car and sits inside a park. She sits on the swing set and is unaware of a ghostly man standing behind her at some distance. Suddenly, she hears something from behind and turns around, but finds nothing. After receiving a text from her boyfriend, she starts chatting with him and gets busy. In an instant, a man dressed in all white runs behind her. She doesn't notice until someone calls her name and asks her to play with him. She tilts her head toward the voice and finds a man standing near the slides with his head covered in fabric and a face drawn on the cloth. In fright, she drops her bag and keys. She quickly picks up her stuff and retreats hastily, but the figure begins following her with a knife in his hand. She goes inside her car and locks the door. The masked man watches from the window. She asks him to leave her, and he walks away. He disappears, but emerges from the next door. She starts looking for her car keys, but can't find them. When she looks up, the door is open, and the same man shows her the keys. Later on, the same girl is playing on the swing set with the white masked man. Her boyfriend arrives at the park and finds her beside the empty swing set. He asks her if she's okay. She doesn't reply to his question, but asks in the same high-pitched tone if he wants to play with her. In the next story, we see a couple sitting on the couch, looking at a ball on the table. They begin fighting, and the girl leaves and goes to the restroom. The man pursues her and apologizes for his cold behavior. He has said something mean about her deceased dog. Later on, they're sitting on the kitchen counter having some snacks. The girl opens the drawer to get a spoon, but she doesn't find it, and the man gets all strange and rude once again. The man sits alone before the ball and complains about her behavior and how she's not acting normally. The woman comes from behind and asks him if he's talking to himself or the ball. He tells her that he hasn't been talking at all. Later, the woman goes to bathe. She stands under the shower with her clothes on. She's angry with her husband for talking to the ball. When she comes out, she finds her husband sitting before the ball again. He's angry again and tells her that he's glad that her dog passed away. She asks her if he has assassinated it, which he denies. She brings a knife and asks again. She asks him again and eventually assassinates him. In the final story, a tourist man named Jake approaches an Airbnb. He tries to open the door, but it doesn't budge. He bangs on it and peeks inside, but nothing happens. He calls the employee of the Airbnb services, who tells Jake that the key is inside the plant. Jake picks up the key and enters the house. He tells Jake to enjoy his stay and warns him of one house rule: not to go near the bedroom down the hall. He tells him that his cousin stays there and doesn't like anyone going near the room. He asks Jake if he wants the refund, but Jake replies that he'll manage. Jake is sitting on the couch when he sees a strange man standing in the dining area. He has come to the kitchen to get something. The peculiar man empties the spoon tray and takes knives with him. At night, when Jake is sleeping, he hears the man's voice. When he wakes up, he finds the man sitting beside him, and the man stabs him with the knife. Luckily, it's just a nightmare. Jake walks to the room and tries to listen, but it's silent. He's having a drink in the kitchen when suddenly, the strange man asks him if he has ever played hide and seek. He brings a knife with him and tells Jake to play with knives. Jake steps back with fright, and the strange man returns to count. Jake goes to the door to run away, but the door is locked. He hides behind a sofa, and the weird man starts to seek him. He tells him that once he'll find him, he'll slit Jake's throat. Suddenly, the strange man returns to his room in fury, closes the door, and stays there quietly. Jake assumes that he has returned to his room and emerges from hiding. Suddenly, the strange-looking man runs toward him, and Jake is about to have the worst time of his life. Later on, another man is seen renting the same Airbnb. The same stuff happens to the man, and he isn't aware of the predicament that is about to fall on him.